Greetings, my friends. Welcome to another realistic railway recreation made using Transport Fever 2. This time, we journey on the Uxbridge branch of the Metropolitan Line. If you've seen my earlier videos on the Metropolitan Railway in 1900, or those on the modern Met main line, or if you simply are familiar with the history of this railway, then you will know that the railway expanded northwest a long way out of London as part of a long-term plan. But the line to Uxbridge was different, almost unplanned, forced on the Met by the actions of others. A group of landowners and businessmen based in Uxbridge wanted their town to have a direct connection to London. Working with not the Met, but the Met's great rival, the District Railway, they planned a new route from High Wycombe through Uxbridge, which is today's M40 motorway, and on to connect with the district's new extension line being built out from Ealing to South Harrow. Well, the High Wycombe bit was blocked in Parliament, probably because of the opposition of the Great Western Railway, so it became Uxbridge to Harrow. And an Act of Parliament was passed in 1897 to incorporate the Harrow and Uxbridge Railway Company, giving the District Railway the operating rights once the railway had been built. The district was slow to get to South Harrow. In 1899, a new act gave operating rights to the Met and authorised a new link to their tracks north of Harrow-on-the-Hill. And in 1903, the Met built the railway, including the connection to the district's newly built South Harrow station, thereby creating a junction at a place they called Rayner's Lane. And I'll say some more about the origin of this name as we approach that station. There was only one station on the way at Ruislip. The first steam trains ran on the new branch in 1904, but quickly replaced by electric trains in 1906, and the Met acquired full ownership of the railway by another Act of Parliament, and then began the process of putting in halts that became stations that after the First World War became the hubs of the brand new suburbs of Metroland. In 1910, the district began running its own trains to Uxbridge via South Harrow, but today this service is run by the Piccadilly line. And we are just waiting now for our train to Uxbridge to come in, and then we will get into the cab and proceed. Our train has arrived. Get into the cab view and get sufficiently far forward of the cab that we can turn round without it getting in the way. That's fine. And we should be on our way directly. There might be a delay because this is where drivers start and stop their shifts. And the train coming into our right has just arrived from Uxbridge. I'm running a couple more trains on this network than I really should in order to provide a realistic timetable, and the gap between services is about 3 to 4 minutes. In reality it's about 6 minutes, but it does make it a bit more interesting. Another train just arrived coming up the Uxbridge line, which has been halted here in the underpass, and that's something that's happened to me many times travelling on that service. The Uxbridge line is particular interest to me because I live halfway along it. We've gone under the fly under which is something that I found extremely difficult to model accurately. We have allotments to our right, and we have the tightly packed residential streets of West Harrow to our left, and this is West Harrow Station. All the streets of West Harrow that we can see behind the platform here are named after famous headmasters of Harrow School. And if I turn the camera right round, no, we can't actually see Harrow-Hill, on which Harrow School is placed. We're coming down into the flat lands around Rayners Lane station, and Rayners Lane was a really accidental station because, as I've explained, the original route of the Uxbridge and Harrow Railway was to go to South Harrow, and when the line was switched to go to Harrow-on-the-Hill, they still built the connection to South Harrow, so we have a triangle of railways, and the junction was at a place that had no name at all. There was a farm track which began in Pinner and ended somewhere in the Roxeth marshes, but no other roads connected to it. And this lane, which on the Ordnance Survey map before the railway came has no name, after the railways came was given the name Rayners Lane. There was a farmer called Rayner who lived in the area, and it's likely that the Metropolitan named this street after him. They had to build a bridge over it, so they probably needed a name at that point, so they knew where they were building the bridge. Here's the connection with today's Piccadilly line. It was the district line until just after the Second World War. And we're coming into Rayners Lane station. Funnily enough, Rayners Lane ought to have an apostrophe in its name if it's named after Mr. Rayner, but it doesn't. There is a siding here, which you can see a Piccadilly line train is waiting at. Piccadilly line trains regularly reverse here, probably between a third and a half of all Piccadilly line services on this branch terminate here at Rayners Lane. And Rayners Lane station still possesses its original signal box from the days when not only did it need to control this siding, which I think is now controlled from Harrow, but to our left there were extensive sidings, and a couple of tracks from those sidings remained until quite recently. They've only been taken up a few years ago. The rest of the goods yard, of course, is the car park. Rayners Lane remained a blank on the map. There was nothing here at all, not even a road, apart from the farm track that they call Rayners Lane, until the 1930s, when the whole area was developed very quickly. Foundations here of what used to be a bridge that connected to the gasworks that were on our left, and long since removed, and that area is now a park. And another bridge here which leads into that park. We're coming up towards Eastcote. The original name of this place was Astcot, which only means the east side, and it's the east side of the parish of Ruislip. It was just a hamlet, and the original Eastcote was about half a mile to the north of where the station is, and that there's a little street there called High Street, which must confuse any visitors, because the main road, which is the one that crosses the railway here, is called Field End Road. As with so many things in Metroland, as soon as the railway came, the centre of gravity shifted. Eastcote, like Rayners Lane, has these wonderful Art Deco curved waiting rooms built by the architect Charles Holden in the 1930s. I never know quite how long they're going to be held at one of these stations, because Transport Fever 2 has its own logic for deciding what the service interval ought to be. We have the suburbs of Eastcote on either side. And ahead of us you'll see a rather elegant footbridge. In reality it's not quite as nice as this. I just used one of the bridge models that was available, but it's really an enclosed bridge. I'm coming up towards Ruislip Manor, station that was built in the heart of the ancient manor of Ruislip. All the land around here was owned by King's College, who used to own the manor of Ruislip. And I can say with some pride as I turn to the right that I can see my house from here. Ruislip Manor has a very distinctive style, and I scratch built this model using a lovely mod called Badger Axe's Building Blocks. To our right, as you'll see as we leave the station, the road goes up a gentle hill called Windmill Hill. There probably was a windmill there in medieval times. There's no trace of it now. And on either side the road there were two huge fields. One was called Great Windmill Field and the other was called Little Windmill Field. And my house is in what used to be Little Windmill Field. There's a Windmill Hill. One of the many parks of Hillingdon Borough, in which we now are, to our left. Hillingdon's got more green spaces, I think, than any other local authority in Britain. Something we're all very proud of. And the distance between Ruislip Manor and Ruislip is almost nothing. We're already arriving at Ruislip Station. The only station that was deliberately built when the line was constructed, and it's still exactly as it was in 1903 when they built it. It's got its own signal box. The station buildings are as they were. It's still got the cast iron made canopies. It has a footbridge. It's got a covered footbridge. I don't have a model of a covered footbridge. And if you look on the right, you can see the buttress of the bridge appears to sit on top of the platform. You might think that's a modelling error. It's not. That's exactly how it is in real life. Passing under a street called West End Lane, and you may remember the one at Eastcote was called Field End Lane. All the names around here refer to the ancient field boundaries. And we're passing now under a bridge which is Wood Lane. We're dropping down into slightly lower ground. And there is indeed a region of land to our left called the Ickenham Marsh. And we've just passed under the Central Line and the Chiltern Line, and to our left is the Central Line depot at South Ruislip, which you can't really see from here. It is indeed deliberately camouflaged behind a lot of trees, and there's also a track building works that London Underground operates, and a siding which was put in sometime in the late 1960s, which connects the Central Line and the Metropolitan Line, and occasionally Piccadilly Line trains go into that siding and reverse, having first ejected all the passengers at Ruislip. I'm coming up into Ickenham Station. The village of Ickenham lies about half a mile to our right. I made an attempt to build the stairways up from the platform, not very successfully. There's a lovely picture of this place in the 1930s when it was wooden platforms and nothing to be seen at all apart from mud in all directions. Like Ruislip, Ickenham is an ancient manor, and there is actually a place called Ickenham Manor. We can't see it from here, but it lies near to a farm, which we will see in a few seconds. These are all what you might think of as extremely dull suburbs covered with semi-detached houses and so on, but they do have a long history. And this little bridge here leads to the farm, Edinburgh Farm. And it's covers quite a large extent of land. It's bounded by the A40 in one direction. There's the farm buildings, and behind them is the boundary of RAF Northcote. Now we're coming up into Hillingdon Station. Long Lane, the local main road, passes over us. We pass over the A40, which at this point is a 6-lane highway which turns into the motorway, the M40. Hillingdon, a very modern station. And it used to be called Hillingdon Swakeleys. Swakeleys is the local big house, a Jacobean mansion, still in existence, owned by a private business. And the owner of Swakeleys estate was one of the rich men who formed the Harrow-on-Uxbridge Railway Company all those years ago, and made sure that there were lots of protections for his estate in the Act of Parliament, which enabled the building of the railway. And we're going to pass under one of the slip roads that leads to the A40. In fact, originally this was the A40, but they built this enormous bypass, the underpass, that we've just passed over. I can't remember when that was done, probably about 40 years ago. And the A40 itself is a new road. It was built in the 1930s. Before that, it was the Oxford Road which went into the heart of Uxbridge. And the A40 was built as a bypass and as a new modern road. To our left, we have what is now the modern suburb of Hillingdon. It isn't really Hillingdon. The old village of Hillingdon, from which Hillingdon Borough gets its name, is about best part of a mile away to our left. To our right, we just crossed the River Pin, by the way. To our right is open land, mostly sports fields and sort of access land, and a lot of it is used by Uxbridge College. I've talked before about ghost bridges on the Met, and this is one of them. It obviously at one time connected the road to our left to farmland on our right. Now it connects nothing. And coming up to the final part of our journey, this is the main road into Uxbridge from the A40 Park Road. And the Uxbridge sidings, of course, to our right. And behind that you can see Sainsbury's supermarket. That's actually built on the site of the very first Uxbridge station, which was called Belmont Road. Also built as a typical late 19th century country station, but it wasn't close enough to the centre of Uxbridge. And I think in 1938 they built a new station, which we're about to enter. Flanked by two enormous office blocks. The one we can see, the white one, is the headquarters of Coca-Cola Europe. And the one on the left, which is very modernistic, is occupied by a number of tenants. Three platforms at Uxbridge, you never know which one you're going to come into. And I've tried to model the very futuristic concrete roof of Uxbridge Station. It's not a very good attempt, but it's better than nothing. That's the end of our journey. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip on the Uxbridge branch. If you've liked this video, please give me a like, leave me a comment, and subscribe to the channel to stay in touch. Thank you very much. I do enjoy reading your comments, by the way, so please leave one.